Thank you for coming. First off, I'm Detective Sergeant Bob Wagner, North Olmsted Police Department. You guys normally like me to spell my last name, W-A-G-N-E-R. Over here, Lead Detective Dan Barrett, and then Captain Ron Cox, both from the North Olmsted Police Department. We received a call from Cleveland Police Department on Monday about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they were asking if we had a missing person case on a Mr. James Cashin, and we did not at the time. We are familiar with Mr. Cashin, and I'll give you a little bit of history on him as we go along. But you guys are well aware that Cleveland Police on Saturday afternoon found a body down by 4001 Pearl Road by the Cleveland Metropolitan Zoo. They believed it was Mr. Cashin. They were thinking that we maybe had a missing person report on him. So we started working with Cleveland homicide detectives, and we drove by Mr. Cashin's house, and there was nothing. There's nobody there at the time. There was a dumpster in the driveway, so we made contact with the Cleveland Police Homicide Unit and subsequently started an investigation that led to a search warrant. Well, we had officers sitting on the house, and the address is 5440 Kennedy Ridge here in North Olmsted. While we had officers sitting on the house, a vehicle left the residence, which we subsequently traffic stopped, and there were two males in the vehicle that we brought in for investigation at that time. Mr. Cashin is the victim that was identified yesterday from the medical examiner's office. He was a resident at 5440 Kennedy Ridge. The two males that were in custody, or we brought in at that time, were Mr. Anthony Kennedy and Seth Wood. Mr. Kennedy was the, I believe, driver of the vehicle that we traffic stopped leaving the residence, and Mr. Wood was the passenger. We have a little bit of history down at the residence. Last June of 2015, we assisted another agency in a search warrant there at the residence. Internet crimes against children. We were just an assist on that. No charges came of that search warrant. 9/24 of this year, so just a little over a month ago, we were called by a neighbor. We responded down to the residence at 5440 Kennedy Ridge, and it was a welfare check. The neighbor hadn't seen Mr. Cashin, in several weeks, and she thought it was odd. At that time, there was nobody at the residence. The residence was locked up. We left. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the 24th, the same day, we responded back down to the residence because there was a car there. At that time, Mr. Wood and Mr. Kennedy were at the residence. We spoke with the neighbor, and Mr. Wood and Mr. Kennedy told us that he was out of town on vacation, possibly in North Carolina. That information was verified by a relative of Mr. Cashin's. They were aware and had correspondence that Mr. Cashin, they believed, was indeed in North Carolina at the time. So we left the residence, and there was no further investigation at that time. Our officers at that time did check the interior of the residence to see if there was anything suspicious, and there was not. So fast forward to after we got the traffic stop on Monday evening. We had a judge at Rocky River Court sign a search warrant for the residence. We called Bureau of Criminal Investigation. Anytime we have something like this in a department of our size, we use whatever resources we can. They have better equipment, and they're experts at what they do. So BCI was called in at that time. We did interview and subsequently charged, as of this morning, Mr. Wood and Mr. Kennedy. They're being charged with aggravated murder, felony of the first degree, They'll probably be seen today in Rocky River Municipal Court for their arraignment. Give you a little bit of background. We don't have a lot of background on Mr. Cashin, Mr. Kennedy, or Mr. Wood. Like I said, we were down at the residence last year in June. Other than that, we've had arrests for Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Wood for drug paraphernalia. That has not even been adjudicated at this time. They're in custody, and I think those charges actually are through Rocky River Court and possibly went to warrants already. I spoke with the coroner right before. It's my reason for being late this morning. I just got off the phone with the coroner. She did rule that the cause of death was blunt, her exact terminology, blunt impact to the head and neck. I'm not going to give a lot more details about information that we have or will be forthcoming. I will take a few questions. I'm not sure that I'll be able to answer it at this time. Hopefully I can. If I can, if not, maybe it'll be for another time. Go ahead.
I don't know if I heard you, but where are Kennedy and Wood from, and what are their ages?
Here's a little bit of background on Mr. Cashin, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Cashin, we believe, is the homeowner. Mr. Kennedy has lived there at the residence for, we believe, the last 6 years. They are in a relationship together, and that we have confirmed. Mr. Wood was not living there. He has an address at the Westbury apartment building here in North Olmsted, and that's where he's been staying.
Is that why Kennedy was there last year when you went on that check?
Yeah, he's been living there. Yeah, they've been in a relationship for, like I said, we think for the last 6 years.
And at this point, you believe that the crime itself occurred in North Olmsted, and then presumably they would have taken the body to the under the bridge?
Correct. We do believe that we have a crime scene here in North Olmsted at 5440 Kennedy Ridge.
So is there a motivation, and what's involved?
Only speculation at this time. Nothing that we can say concrete.
Did you find any weapons for the blunt force, or was it?
No.
Did the coroner say approximately how long the body had been there, where it was found?
We believe that Mr. Cashin, that this may have taken place sometime towards the latter half of August. We know that he had been deceased for some time, so we believe there towards the last week of August or so.
Is there anything in disarray in the house?
The house has been disarray when we were down there last year and this year. Not uncommon for that house.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anybody else?
I did also, just so you know, I sent out to everybody that's on my media contact, so if you're here, you probably got the email. Right before I walked over here, I sent out photographs electronically of all three, and I also sent out electronically their names, their addresses, their date of births, and height and weights are on there also. So you guys will have all that information electronically. If you want to use that, feel free. Obviously when we have something like this for a department our size, we get inundated with media, people asking questions. Yesterday I had 22 voicemails. We can't, it's very difficult for me and my 5 detectives to handle a large case like this. So, I apologize if I didn't get back to everybody. The media's been great this time around, been fantastic. But I do try and answer everybody, and it was just easier for me to do it this way and do it all at once versus try and do everybody separately. I know people wanted on-camera interviews and so forth. So this just, handles it very easy for us. So if you do have any additional questions, like I said, there's some things that we just don't know. There's some things that we can't release, but I'll do what I can. Yeah.
Quick details one more time for us.
Mr. Cashin, we believe it expired, sometimes toward the latter half of August. Coroner ruled that it was blunt force impact to the head and neck, and we did a search warrant on the house at 5440 Kennedy Ridge, and subsequently, through a traffic stop of 2 males leaving that residence, took into custody Mr. Anthony Kennedy and Mr. Seth Wood. Mr. Cashin was a retired probation officer from Cuyahoga County, where I think he worked for 30 years. He also had a side polygraph business on the side and was also working at the airport as a security officer. They were in a relationship. Mr. Cashin and Mr. Kennedy were in a relationship together, we believe, for the past 6 years.
What's Kennedy's background? What does he do about it?
He has like an online eBay store. He sells odds and ends, a little bit of everything, sunglasses and air fresheners and you know, boxes of yarn and just a little bit of odds and ends stuff. And I believe he visits flea markets also and sells different things at flea markets. And you know, I don't believe he has a 9-to-5 job, if you would.
Any idea how long the body had been near the zoo in the park or the?
I don't. I don't believe it was that long.
Can you say if investigators believe they've recovered any type of weapon you believe to be used in this crime?
We have not. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.